Hi, I'm William Malik with a bit of security for Monday, July 6th, 2026. Today we're going to be talking about automated systems management. I recently saw an interview with Alex Carp, CEO and co-founder of Palantir. While he and his co-founder partner um, gravely misunderstand much of the social concern over their technology, their devotion to their alternative vision of AI in the enterprise is compelling. First, Palantir wants to reassure their clients that their proprietary IP will not leave their premises. Second, they want to reassure their clients that their prompts, which embody a new form of capital, will remain in the possession of the client. And third, they will work with the client to better use the capabilities of these tools. Let's take a look at Apollo, their tool for automated systems management. It's been out for a number of years. Hasn't had the take up that I would have expected, although we're now beginning to see other vendors in the space coming out with automated patch and systems management tools as well, which should re-energize the market. I was the team lead for build and test in IBM Poughkeepsie while I worked there. It was the team's responsibility to make sure that we could deliver an upgraded platform. The pace was 3 times a week, incorporating incremental changes to produce the next version of IBM's mainframe operating system. This involved with coordinating up to 28 other IBM labs and development centers distributed globally. The core operating system that we owned contained about 4,000 or 5,000 modules, and when compiled, occupied a code space of 4 megabytes, not gigabytes, of memory. So code had to be tight and efficient, not to say also flawless. Today, a typical enterprise run hundreds of applications comprising thousands of modules distributed across scores of platforms, both internal and external to the enterprise. To maintain operational integrity, the enterprise must carefully schedule updates as they come in to maintain peak efficiency and security. However, some updates are imperfect. That means the enterprise must maintain multiple copies of its operational environment and must be able to roll forward to new configurations and fail back in the event of a glitch. This technique, called hot standby, was once considered an expense for truly mission-critical apps, and it's now, in fact, standard mode operation. For disaster recovery, one of those images may be geographically remote from another, but conventional practice processing will bounce back and forth from one to the other whenever major change is needed, like you need to upgrade the power or physical plant in one site, so you want to bounce to the other. Planning and executing transitions becomes increasingly complex as vendors roll out fixes and updates pretty much continuously. SaaS applications mask some of the complexity, but some SaaS vendors and particularly open source developers have a relaxed posture to changing APIs when the product seems to require it. This can cause heartburn for the enterprise, which now finds that it can't go to the new capability as smoothly as intended. For instance, fixes to the Apache Struts vulnerability introduced changes to the APIs, meaning that the enterprise had to rewrite some of its web code in order to be able to roll past the defects that led to the Equifax breach a few years ago. Having a hot standby minimizes the downtime, but does not allow you to circumvent those kinds of issues. Palantir Apollo automates the process of rolling forward and failing back so that at the detailed planning level, which can be done rapidly under the guidance of an effective, properly provisioned infrastructure and operations team. Organizations that have moved to cloud computing may find that their I&O teams are overstretched and may have been downsized to afford the savings necessary to reside in somebody else's cloud. This means enterprises have a financial barrier to entry to returning to their prior way of doing business. Otherwise, it would have been a correct move economically. Apollo may help organizations bridge the gap to rebuilding their in-house IT capability. Palantir hopes to preserve your intellectual property embedded in your particular operational configuration, just as your AI prompts are a new form of intellectual property and therefore capital. Your IT infrastructure is a well-understood capital investment. The challenge is to explain the value of that investment to the board. If they don't feel it's valuable, they won't want to fund it. But it embodies intellectual property and that needs to be maintained. To the extent that automated systems management and patch management tools can identify and sustain a hot standby environment with fast failover and rollback, these tools make the transition back to a stronger and more resilient IT infrastructure easier. And as the tools identify and document that infrastructure, where the vulnerabilities are, what pace of change fits, the value of that IP becomes more visible than it had been before. This will lead to a more robust and properly valued IT infrastructure. And that supports alignment more transparently than simply shoehorning your processes into generic, undifferentiated third-party platforms that leak your intellectual property to your vendors, your suppliers, and your competition. And that's our bit of security for Monday, 6th of July, 2026. Be safe.